A desperate 19-year-old college student whispered those words to a 65-year-old tech billionaire on their wedding night. But what she discovered about his true intentions would shatter everything she thought she knew about love, money, and the price of survival. The rain hammered against the cracked windows of the rundown apartment building in downtown Portland as Sofia Chen hunched over her laptop, the glow illuminating dark circles under her tired eyes. At 19, she looked even younger, baby-faced with her petite frame and nervous habits, a fact that had become both her burden and soon her salvation. Her phone buzzed with another overdue notice. Medical bills from her grandmother's cancer treatment, tuition for her computer science program at Portland State, rent that was 3 months behind. The numbers blurred together, $47,000 in total debt that might as well have been $47 million. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Sofia's fingers trembled as she scrolled through her bank account. $23.47. Not even enough for groceries this week. Grandma Lily, I'm so sorry, Sofia whispered into the empty room, looking at the framed photo of the woman who had raised her after her parents died in a car crash when she was 12, the woman who was now in hospice care because Sofia couldn't afford the experimental treatment that might save her life. The treatment that cost $200,000, a sum so astronomical it felt fictional. Her laptop pinged with another email, this one from the university's financial aid office. Final notice. If she didn't pay $8,000 by Friday, she'd be dropped from all classes. Her dream of becoming a software engineer, of building the kind of apps that could change lives, would die along with her grandmother. Sofia had graduated high school at 16, was already coding advanced algorithms that impressed her professors, had even won a state-level programming competition last year. But brilliance didn't pay bills. Genius didn't cure cancer. She opened her coding project, a machine learning algorithm designed to predict market trends. It was revolutionary work, the kind that tech companies would pay millions for. But she was just a broke college student in a crumbling apartment, invisible to the world that mattered. The doorbell rang at 11:47 p.m. Sofia froze. Nobody visited her at this hour. Nobody visited her at all, really. Through the peephole, she saw a man in an expensive suit holding an umbrella, seemingly unbothered by the torrential downpour. His silver hair was perfectly styled. His shoes probably cost more than her rent. "Miss Chen?" His voice was calm, refined, carrying the authority of old money. "My name is Vincent Torres. I represent Alexander Whitmore. We need to discuss a proposition that could change your life." Sofia's heart hammered against her ribs. Alexander Whitmore, the tech billionaire whose face graced Forbes covers, whose company Whitmore Dynamics had revolutionized artificial intelligence and made him one of the richest men in America. Why would someone like that know her name? How did he even know where she lived? Against every instinct screaming at her to stay behind the locked door, Sofia opened it, keeping the chain lock engaged. Vincent smiled professionally, the kind of practiced expression that came from years of delivering life-changing news. "Mr. Whitmore has been following your academic work, particularly your research on predictive algorithms. Quite impressive for someone so young. I don't understand. How does he even know who I am?" Vincent handed her an elegant black card through the crack in the door, its surface embossed with gold lettering that caught the hallway light. "He knows talent when he sees it, Miss Chen, and he has a proposition that could solve all your current difficulties. He'd like to meet with you tomorrow evening. The Heathman Hotel, penthouse suite. 8 p.m. Sofia stared at the card, her hands shaking slightly. The Heathman Hotel was the kind of place she'd only seen in movies, where Portland's elite conducted Business over champagne that cost more than most people's monthly salary. What kind of proposition? Vincent's smile never wavered. The kind that requires a conversation in person, Miss Chen. I will say this. Mr. Whitmore is prepared to be very generous to the right person willing to help him with a rather unique situation. Sofia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. What situation? Mr. Whitmore will explain everything tomorrow. Good evening, Miss Chen. He's very much looking forward to meeting you. As Vincent disappeared into the night, his expensive car purring away into the darkness, Sofia stood in her doorway holding the card. Rain misted through the gap, dampening her cheap pajamas. Her rational mind screamed this was dangerous. Billionaires didn't randomly seek out broke college students unless something was very wrong, but her desperate heart whispered it might be her only chance. Her grandmother had maybe weeks left. The university deadline was in 3 days. She was drowning, and this mysterious invitation felt like the only lifeline in sight. She had no idea that Alexander Whitmore had been watching her for months, that her financial desperation wasn't mere coincidence, and that tomorrow's meeting would set in motion a plan that was decades in the making. A plan that would require her to whisper those terrifying words on what should have been the most important night of her life. The Heathman Hotel's penthouse elevator seemed to climb forever, each floor making Sofia's stomach drop further. She'd borrowed her roommate's only decent dress, a simple black number that hung loose on her tiny frame. At 19, she looked more like she was attending a high school formal than meeting one of America's most powerful men. The elevator doors slid open to reveal a living space that defied imagination. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased Portland's glittering skyline, while modern art worth more than most people's houses adorned the walls. But it was the man standing by the windows who commanded attention. Alexander Whitmore turned slowly, and Sofia's breath caught. At 65, he possessed the kind of commanding presence that filled rooms, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with piercing gray eyes that seemed to see straight through her. He was handsome in the way that power and wealth made men handsome, but there was something else in his gaze, something calculating. Miss Chen, his voice was warm honey over steel. Thank you for coming. You're even younger than I expected. Sofia felt heat creep up her neck. Mr. Whitmore, I thank you for inviting me, though I still don't understand why. Alexander gestured to a leather chair that probably cost more than her semester's tuition. Please sit. Would you like some wine? Oh, wait. His smile was knowing. I suppose you're not quite old enough for that, are you? The comment stung, but Sofia lifted her chin. I'm old enough to be here. Indeed you are. Alexander poured himself a glass of what looked like expensive scotch. I've been following your work, Sofia. May I call you Sofia? Your algorithm for predictive market analysis is remarkable. Revolutionary, even. Sofia blinked in surprise. You've seen my coursework? I've seen more than that. I know about your grandmother's condition, the experimental treatment she needs, your impending expulsion from university, the $47,000 in debt that's crushing your family. Alexander's voice remained calm, almost casual, as he recited her deepest fears. Sofia's hands trembled. How do you know all that? When you have my resources, information becomes quite accessible. Alexander sat across from her, studying her face like she was a fascinating specimen. The question is, what are you willing to do to change your circumstances? I don't understand what you're asking. Alexander leaned forward, his intensity suddenly focused on her like a laser. I have a problem, Sofia. A very specific problem that requires a very specific solution. I need a wife. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Sofia stared at him, certain she'd misheard. Excuse me? You heard correctly. I need to marry someone, and you need money. It's a simple business transaction. Sofia shot to her feet, her borrowed dress swishing around her legs. "You're insane. I'm 19 years old." You're old enough to be my grandfather." Alexander's expression didn't change. "Age is irrelevant to what I'm proposing. This isn't about romance, Sofia. It's about mutual benefit." "Mutual benefit?" Sofia's voice cracked. "What could you possibly get from marrying me?" Alexander stood, moving to a mahogany desk where he retrieved a thick legal document. "My late wife's will contains a rather unique clause. To maintain control of certain assets, specifically a technology patent worth approximately $2.8 billion, I must be married before my 66th birthday." Sofia's eyes widened. "When's your birthday?" 3 weeks from today." "But surely you could marry anyone. Why me?" Alexander's smile was cold, calculated. "Because you're desperate enough to say yes, young enough to be believable as someone who might actually want to marry me for love, and smart enough to understand the arrangement without causing complications." Sofia felt sick. "You want me to pretend to love you? I want you to be my wife for exactly 1 year. After that, we divorce quietly. You receive a settlement of $5 million, and we never see each other again." Alexander's voice was matter-of-fact, as if he were discussing the weather. Sofia's mind reeled. $5 million. Her grandmother's treatment, university, a future without crushing debt. "I need time to think," she whispered. "Of course. But—" "Sofia?" Alexander's voice stopped her at the elevator. "Your grandmother doesn't have time. The experimental treatment has a waiting list. I can have her admitted tomorrow." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. As the elevator descended, Sofia caught her reflection in the polished doors. She looked like a child playing dress-up in adult clothes, which, she realized with growing horror, was exactly what Alexander was counting on that night. She sat by her grandmother's bedside in the sterile hospice room, holding the frail hand that had once helped her with homework, made her favorite soup when she was sick, been her anchor in a world that had taken everything else away. "Grandma, what would you do?" Sofia whispered. Her grandmother's eyes fluttered open, clouded with medication but still sharp with love. "Whatever gives you the best future, little bird. Don't sacrifice your life for an old woman's mistakes." But Sofia knew the truth. It wasn't about sacrifice anymore. It was about survival. And Alexander Whitmore held all the cards. The next morning, she called Vincent Torres. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I have conditions." "Mr. Whitmore will be pleased," Vincent replied smoothly. "The wedding is scheduled for this Saturday." The courthouse wedding lasted exactly 14 minutes. Sofia stood in a borrowed white dress that Vincent had somehow procured overnight, her hands trembling as she signed documents that would change her identity forever. Mrs. Sofia Whitmore. The name felt foreign on her tongue, like wearing clothes that belonged to someone else. Alexander looked impeccable in his charcoal suit, playing the role of devoted groom with Oscar-worthy precision. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, his kiss was brief, cold, and calculated, more business handshake than romantic gesture. "Congratulations, Mrs. Whitmore," he whispered against her ear, and Sofia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Portland autumn air. The ride to Alexander's estate passed in suffocating silence. Sofia pressed her face to the limousine window, watching the city give way to the exclusive hills of Forest Park Estates. When they finally stopped, she gasped despite herself. The Whitmore mansion was a testament to power and isolation, a sprawling modernist masterpiece of glass and steel that seemed to grow from the hillside itself. It commanded a view of the entire city below, like a predator surveying its territory. "Welcome home," Alexander said, his tone carrying an edge Sofia couldn't quite identify. Inside, the house felt more like a museum than a home. Every surface gleamed with cold perfection. Marble floors that echoed footsteps, abstract art that probably cost more than most people's houses, and an unsettling absence of anything personal or warm. Sofia's sneakers squeaked against the polished stone as she followed Alexander deeper into the cavernous space. "Your room is on the 3rd floor," Alexander said, leading her up a floating staircase that seemed to defy gravity. "East wing. I trust you'll find it comfortable." Sofia's heart sank. "Separate rooms?" Alexander's smile was sharp. "Did you expect otherwise?" "This is a business arrangement, Sofia. Let's not confuse the matter with romantic notions." The room he showed her was beautiful and sterile, all white and silver with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate's manicured gardens. It felt like sleeping in a high-end hotel room, designed to impress but never to comfort. "Dinner is at 8, Alexander said, checking his platinum watch. "We have appearances to maintain. Mrs. Patterson will help you with anything you need." As if summoned, an older woman appeared in the doorway, tall, severe, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that seemed to catalog Sofia's every flaw. "Mrs. Patterson has been with the family for 30 years, Alexander continued. "She'll help you adjust to your new role." After Alexander left, Mrs. Patterson stepped into the room, her gaze sweeping over Sofia like a scanner. "So you're the new Mrs. Whitmore," she said, her tone neutral but somehow disapproving. "You're younger than I expected." Sofia lifted her chin. "I get that a lot." Mrs. Patterson's smile was thin. "I'm sure you do. A word of advice, dear. Mr. Whitmore values discretion above all else. Some questions are better left unasked." That evening, Sofia sat at one end of a dining table that could easily seat 20 people. Alexander occupied the other end, the distance between them emphasizing the absurdity of their situation. The silence was broken only by the soft clink of silverware and the whispered movements of staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. "Tell me about your algorithm," Alexander said suddenly, cutting into his perfectly prepared salmon. Sofia blinked, surprised. "My algorithm? The predictive model you developed. I'm curious about the practical applications." As Sofia explained her work, she noticed Alexander's attention wasn't entirely on her words. His eyes studied her face, her gestures, as if memorizing her responses for some future use. "Fascinating," he murmured when she finished. "You have quite a gift for seeing patterns others miss." "Is that why you really married me?" Sofia asked boldly. "For my programming skills." Alexander's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "I told you why I married you, Sofia. Don't look for hidden meanings where none exist." But Sofia caught something in his expression, a flicker of something deeper, more calculating than mere inheritance concerns. Later that night, as Sofia lay in her luxurious prison of a bedroom, she heard sounds from elsewhere in the house. Muffled conversations, footsteps in hallways that should have been empty, the soft hum of electronic equipment from somewhere below. She crept to her door and found it unlocked. The hallway stretched in both directions, dimly lit and eerily quiet. Following the sounds, she discovered a staircase leading to what appeared to be a basement level she hadn't known existed. The voices grew clearer as she descended. "The girl doesn't suspect anything?" A voice she didn't recognize. "Not yet." Alexander's voice, cold and businesslike. "She's exactly what we need. Young, desperate, and brilliant enough to be useful. And when she discovers the truth about the patent, she won't. Not until it's too late to matter." Sofia's blood turned to ice. She pressed herself against the wall, straining to hear more, but footsteps approached the staircase. Heart pounding, she fled back to her room, questions multiplying. In her mind like viruses, what truth about the patent? What was she really useful for? And what would happen when Alexander's mysterious timeline reached its conclusion? As she lay awake staring at the ceiling, Sofia realized she had whispered those words to the wrong person entirely. Her age wasn't her secret to protect. It was Alexander's weapon to use. 3 days after the wedding, Sofia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Not just by the security cameras she'd noticed in every corner, but by something more invasive, as if the house itself was studying her every move. Alexander had left for what he called business meetings that morning, kissing her cheek with the same mechanical precision he'd shown at their wedding. "Be good while I'm gone, darling," he'd said, loud enough for Mrs. Patterson to hear. The performance was flawless and utterly hollowed out now. Alone except for the ghostly staff, Sofia decided it was time for answers. She started with Alexander's study, an imposing room lined with leather-bound books that looked untouched and dominated by a massive mahogany desk. The drawers were locked, but Sofia's computer science background had taught her more than just programming. Her roommate's boyfriend had been a locksmith, and some skills transferred unexpectedly. The first drawer contained typical business documents, contracts, financial statements, correspondence about Whitmore Dynamics. But in the bottom drawer, hidden beneath a false bottom that Sofia almost missed, she found something that made her blood run cold. A thick manila folder labeled Project Sofia, Phase 1 Complete. With trembling hands she opened it. The first page was a detailed dossier about her, not just basic information, but intimate details about her personality, her fears, her relationship with her grandmother. Psychological profiles, academic records going back to middle school, even photographs taken without her knowledge. Sofia walking to class, sitting in the library, visiting her grandmother in the hospital. Subject demonstrates exceptional analytical capabilities with notable emotional vulnerabilities, one report read. Family attachment provides optimal leverage for compliance. Recommend proceeding with marriage proposal as outlined in Protocol 7. Sofia's hands shook as she flipped through page after page of surveillance reports, psychological evaluations, and strategic planning documents. Alexander hadn't been following her work. He'd been stalking her for over a year, but it was the final document that shattered her world completely. Patent transfer authorization, conditional marriage clause. Upon subject's 20th birthday, all intellectual property rights for algorithm X47 will transfer to Whitmore Dynamics via spousal property laws. Subject's age at time of marriage ensures legal vulnerability and prevents future challenges to ownership. Sofia stared at the words, reading them again and again until their meaning crystallized into horrifying clarity. Her algorithm, the predictive model she'd spent 2 years developing, wasn't just impressive to Alexander. It was what he'd wanted all along, and he'd married her specifically because she was 19, because at her age, the laws around intellectual property and spousal rights created a legal loophole he could exploit. The door to the study opened behind her. "I was wondering when you'd find that." Alexander's voice was calm. But when Sofia spun around, his expression was colder than she'd ever seen it. "You've been watching me for over a year," Sofia whispered, the folder clutched against her chest. "This was never about your inheritance. This was about stealing my work." Alexander stepped into the room, closing the door behind him with a soft click. "Stealing is such an ugly word. I prefer to think of it as acquisition." "My algorithm could revolutionize financial markets," Sofia said, backing against the desk. "It's worth millions." "Billions," Alexander corrected. "And with your charming naivety about legal protections, it's now mine. Or will be in 8 months. When you turn 20. Sofia's mind raced. "The patent story, your late wife's will, all lies? Completely fabricated. Though I must say, you played your part beautifully. The desperate young bride, so grateful for her older husband's generosity." Alexander's smile was predatory. "Do you know how long I've been searching for someone with your specific combination of brilliance and vulnerability?" "The grandmother's treatment," Sofia breathed. "You're not paying for experimental therapy, are you?" Alexander's laugh was sharp. "Oh, but I am. Standard chemotherapy, rebranded with impressive medical terminology. Your grandmother is receiving excellent care, just not the miraculous cure you believe you purchased with your freedom. Sofia felt the room spinning around her. Everything, the marriage, the money, even her grandmother's hope, had been built on lies. "You're a monster," she whispered. "I'm a businessman," Alexander replied. "And you, my dear wife, are the most profitable investment I've ever made. I won't let you do this. I'll expose everything." Alexander pulled out his phone, showing her a video that made her heart stop. It was her grandmother in the hospital, connected to machines, vulnerable and alone. "I wonder what would happen if her treatment were suddenly discontinued," Alexander mused. "Or if certain financial irregularities were discovered in her medical records. Elder abuse investigations can be so traumatic for families." Sofia's knees nearly buckled. "You wouldn't. Try me." Alexander's voice was steel wrapped in silk. "You're going to be a good wife, Sofia. You're going to smile at my business dinners, play the devoted young bride, and in 8 months, you're going to sign over your algorithm willingly. Because if you don't," he didn't need to finish the threat. Sofia understood perfectly. As Alexander left the study, Sofia sank into his chair, surrounded by the evidence of her own trap. She'd thought she was saving her family, but she'd actually sold herself to a predator who'd been hunting her for over a year. But as the initial shock faded, something else began to grow in its place. Alexander had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated exactly how brilliant his young wife really was. If he wanted to play games, Sofia would show him what a real strategist could do. Sofia spent the next week playing the perfect wife while secretly building her counterattack. She attended Alexander's business dinners with a practiced smile, letting him parade her around like a trophy while she memorized faces, names, and conversations. What Alexander didn't know was that his 19-year-old bride had a photographic memory for patterns, and she was beginning to see one that would destroy him. At a charity gala, Sofia overheard a conversation between Alexander and Senator Patricia Hayes, a woman known for her strict stance on corporate ethics. "The FDA approval for your new AI medical diagnostic should go through smoothly," the senator said quietly. "Though I trust you've addressed all the algorithmic concerns." "Completely resolved," Alexander assured her. "The predictive model is flawless." Sofia's blood ran cold. Her algorithm wasn't just about financial markets. Alexander was planning to use it for medical diagnostics, potentially putting lives at risk with technology he'd stolen and couldn't properly maintain. That night, Sofia made a decision that would change everything. She contacted her former computer science professor, Dr. Rebecca Martinez, using a secure email account she'd created from the mansion's guest computer. "Dr. Martinez, I need your help with something urgent. I can't explain over email, but I've discovered that my predictive algorithm has been stolen and is being misused for medical applications. Can you meet me?" The response came within hours. "Sofia, I've been worried about you since your sudden marriage. Meet me at Powell's Books tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone." The next afternoon, Sofia slipped away from the mansion while Alexander was in meetings. Dr. Martinez, a brilliant woman in her 50s who had mentored Sofia through her most challenging coursework, listened with growing alarm as Sofia explained everything. "This is corporate theft on a massive scale," Dr. Martinez said, her face pale. "But Sofia, if what you're saying is true about the medical applications, this could cost lives. Your algorithm wasn't designed for diagnostic medicine." "I know," Sofia whispered, "but I have a plan. I need you to help me document everything. Create a paper trail that proves the algorithm's original development was mine." Together, they worked frantically to compile evidence. Dr. Martinez provided academic records, development logs, and testimony from other professors who had witnessed Sofia's work. Meanwhile, Sofia had been secretly recording conversations with Alexander, building a case that would expose his entire operation. But Alexander's network was more extensive than Sofia had imagined. 3 days before she planned to go public, Mrs. Patterson delivered a chilling message. "Mr. Whitmore requests your presence in his study, Mrs. Whitmore, immediately." Sofia found Alexander waiting with Vincent Torres and 2 men she didn't recognize. Corporate lawyers, judging by their expensive suits and predatory expressions. "I'm disappointed, Sofia," Alexander said, holding up printouts of her email exchanges with Dr. Martinez. "Did you really think you could outmaneuver me?" Sofia's heart pounded, but she kept her voice steady. "I think you underestimated me from the beginning. Perhaps, but it doesn't matter now. You're going to sign this document, transferring all rights to your algorithm, effective immediately. Or your grandmother's life support gets disconnected tonight." Vincent placed a legal document on the desk. Sofia stared at it, her mind racing through every possibility, every angle she'd prepared for. Then she smiled. "You know what, Alexander? I think you should call the hospital." Alexander frowned. "What?" "Call them. Ask about my grandmother's condition." Something in Sofia's tone made Alexander hesitate, but he dialed the number. His expression shifted from confidence to confusion, to rage as he listened. "She's been discharged," he said into the phone. "When? By whose authority?" Sofia stood up, pulling a small recording device from her purse. "By mine, as her legal guardian, which I became when I turned 18. Dr. Martinez helped me transfer her to a private facility 3 days ago, when you can't touch." The recording device had captured every word of Alexander's threat, his admission of fraud, and his conspiracy to steal her work. "You also might want to know," Sofia continued, "that the FBI's corporate fraud division received a very detailed package this morning, complete with recordings, documentation, and testimony from Dr. Martinez about your theft of intellectual property." Alexander's face went white. "You little. And the senator you've been bribing? She's actually been working with federal investigators for months. Turns out, threatening a teenager's dying grandmother was exactly the evidence they needed to bring you down." The sound of sirens approaching the mansion filled the air. "How?" Alexander whispered. Sofia's smile was triumphant. "You taught me something valuable, Alexander. You said I have a gift for seeing patterns others miss. Well, I saw yours. A pattern of corruption, bribery, and theft going back years, all documented in your own files." As federal agents stormed into the study, Sofia walked past her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, toward the door. "Oh, and Alexander," she called back. "I really am only 19, but I'm also the smartest person you've ever underestimated." 6 months later, Sofia stood in a courtroom watching Alexander Whitmore sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for corporate fraud, theft of intellectual property, and conspiracy. The algorithm she'd protected was now being used legitimately by a nonprofit medical research foundation, helping doctors save lives around the world. Her grandmother, fully recovered and living in a comfortable assisted living facility, squeezed Sofia's hand as they left the courthouse. "I'm proud of you, little bird," she whispered. "You turned your intelligence into something beautiful." Sofia smiled, thinking about the technology scholarship she'd established for young women in computer science, funded by the settlement from Alexander's seized assets. Sometimes being 19 and brilliant was exactly the right combination to change the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.